So we come to this movement from many different entry points. We have a range of perspectives. And thriving movements recognize and celebrate these differences within, while also finding its center and points that bind us together, reinforce our reason for collective coordinated work. So, that's what we're going to focus on next, some of the differences in what brings us here and also the commonalities. So, as you saw earlier when Stacy and Chelsea shared the survey results about this year's program, exploring universality was one of the topics most of interest to us all. So we wanted to spend some time here together to begin that exploration. Not everyone has a clear vision yet for what they hope is the ultimate piece of legislation, if it's legislation. But those who do, we want to ask, what does it look like? And what considerations, values, and experiences go into that? So we're about to start building a roadmap for the next few years. And we're going to start with thinking about what fuels our own why as we support this movement. So some folks are going to come up now, share their whys, and explain where they're coming from. So they're going to introduce themselves a little bit. I'll just offer their names, and then you'll hear from them. So first we'll have Esther Tercios from the Colorado Fiscal Institute. Yes. I love this. When a name, we pause for applause after every name. Icons only. I love it. Kevin Scott from Just Income and Community Spring. Ari Noguchi from US Big and ABC will be next. Alex Howlett from the Grisham Institute will be after that. And then a really weird one, Kevin Gotkin, which is my name. I'll step into the conversation, and I'll say more about who I am because I haven't said anything, have I? I've just been doing this. So Esther, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Buenos dias. How's everyone doing? Good. Awesome. Well, it is such a pleasure and such an honor to be here with you all this morning. I was asked to share and speak a little bit about Colorado and the Colorado Fiscal Institute, which is the nonprofit organization that I represent and I'm here for. But it hit me as I was sitting there and was inspired by all of our speakers who just spoke, that I just want to share my why before I share my organization's why. And my why, I think, being here in DC, I'm especially, I think, encouraged and inspired to share that my why is my family and my immigrant parents. I think that needs to be named, and I credit them. Thank you. Because they are people, they are humans, and they, like many parents who immigrate to this country, they chose a risky destination and a risky path. So that I could be at a conference, at a big conference. And so I would be doing them a dishonor if I didn't name that they are my why, and my family is my why, and the community fighting is my why. So thank you. So my name is Esther Tercios. I am the Deputy Director at the Colorado Fiscal Institute. If you haven't heard from us, about us, we are a statewide nonprofit, policy advocacy nonprofit based in Denver, Colorado. And we advance and advocate for people-centered tax, budget, and economic policies, which sound boring, but taxes, when you learn about them, are really fun and powerful. And we all need to be taught and learn about taxes, because then you believe lies that immigrants don't pay taxes, and they do. And so we advance policies that we know center people, and we use the tools of research, advocacy, communications, and education to advance those policies for people who have historically been excluded from economic prosperity. And for us at CFI, we see guaranteed income as a transformative tool for economic justice, because it's not shocking, right? It's not really that radical to think about giving money, direct cash, unrestricted cash to people when we have money, when we have the flexibility to choose how we spend that money to meet our own needs. That, if I can just say, go beyond the things like food and shelter and paying for bills, but it's taking your kids on vacation. It's doing the things that help to heal your mind and your soul. And it's not, I just want to make sure to say that, right? Because it's everyone's needs should be met, and that's food and shelter and water. That is not radical, and you should be able to take care of your whole selves. And that's what you get to do when you choose how you spend your money. But we also know that not everyone is starting from the same place. So things like race and gender and immigration status and disability and so many others have shaped who has access to opportunity and who's been denied it. And that's why for CFI, we've tried to approach this work of guaranteed income through the lens of what we call targeted universalism. So targeted universalism, for folks who aren't familiar, is a framework that sets this shared universal goal for everyone. Something like economic prosperity for all is a universal goal. And then it uses targeted strategies to get everyone there. It was coined and developed by John A. Powell. If you're not familiar, he is the director of the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. And this framework is a both-and framework, both a commitment to a shared well-being for everyone and a recognition that historic policies, as we just learned about, and current policies, create inequities that exist. So different people will need different strategies will need to target our policies in different ways. And this framing has really helped CFI approach everything from things like tax credits, like the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and now more so policy, guaranteed income policy. So for how CFI sees applying this, an example is our tax credit work. Since 1999, CFI has been leading what was called the Earned Income EITC Coalition, now the Helping Families Get Ahead Coalition, and seeing things like the EITC and the child tax credit, policies that put money directly in the hands of families, people and families, and realizing that at the national level we had those, and we have decades of research showing us how powerful these types of policies are. How can we bring them to Colorado and create state-level policies? So we looked at our child tax credit, for instance, when we helped to develop that at the state level, and said, you know what, all families with children should be getting cash, and people who earn low income should have access to these dollars. But then we noticed that for families with children under the age of 0 to 5, that's an especially important time for kids to be in stable housing and have access to money, because those years really impact a child's well-being, future well-being. And so we developed our child tax credit at the state level to target families with children 0 to 5. We expand and have since expanded that child tax credit with the support of a lot of Colorado partners who are here today. We targeted immigrant families, so we were the first state in the nation to expand the EITC and CTC to families filing taxes with ITINs, so many of whom are undocumented immigrants. And so how do we target something that's universal, or we're trying to create more universal for, but targeted to the people who we know just face different barriers? One of the many examples that we're trying to use and apply this targeted universalism policy that we know about. So that is our approach. That is how we are seeing it play in practice. What we are learning during this time is that universal policies always leave out people unless we design them with intention. And so our conversation and the work that we're trying to do now is how do we develop more of these direct cash policies with intention, targeting the people that we know face different barriers. And we also have to name that policies like guaranteed income also require us to be explicit about what we're trying to repair, right? So much of this work is about transforming the narrative, as we all know. How do we change our idea about how we see the dignity of people, and that people have dignity? How do we change the narrative around money and what money is, and this idea of who is deserving and who isn't. And so much of this work is just naming that these policies are trying to repair a lot of harm that's already happened. So I'll end with what we're looking ahead towards. We're working in Colorado with many of our partners here, the Cash for Coloradans Coalition, to really continue the movement of cash in Colorado, with a lot of partners here who are doing great work. I'll have to give a shout out to the Denver Basic Income Project, who is here, who is leading one of the biggest pilots targeting direct cash to people experiencing homelessness. For CFI, we see targeted universalism as the lens that can really serve as a roadmap that give us shared values and the strategies that help to shape the real needs and target policies in that way. So it's a little bit about us and CFI and our work. So thank you for your time.
Wow, there's some amazing people here. Hi. Oh, yeah. Okay. My name is Kevin Scott, and I'm the Director of Guaranteed Income at Community Spring in Gainesville, Florida. We were a pilot. We are now an ongoing program. We're in our third cohort. That's right? Okay. And our GI is by and for formerly incarcerated people. Okay. And again, we're doing that work in Florida, so good Lord, we picked a really hard thing. And I have lived what we work on. I know firsthand how poverty and incarceration are two systems that feed each other very well. I was in prison. I was certain I was never going to come home. To be in this room is amazing to me. I was wrong. I did come home, by the way. And then when I came home, I was certain I was going to go back, not because of any offense, because I could not afford my own freedom. So I have been inside of harmful systems that are built on control instead of trust, and I have now seen what happens when we flip the script, and when we start with trust, we lead with cash, and we center the voices of impacted people. So our North Star, pretty simply, is just normalizing unrestricted cash for everyone, but especially for people who have been punished, excluded, and erased. Not as a novelty or an exception, but cash as a baseline. We shift from control and scarcity to trust and agency. We stop asking who deserves support, and we ask, what do you need to thrive? Cash is not a magic wand. Hopefully you've realized that by now. But it is a foundation. It is a tool for stability, and it undoes generations of stigma, control, and distrust. It's very powerful. So some of our very simple values are just economic security is a right, full stop, no hoops. You don't have to prove anything. You're ready as you are right now. Trust is infrastructure. Start there and see how everything changes. Durable transformation grows from the ground up. Not through policy whiplash. We have seen how quickly support can disappear. And when relief is temporary, so is the stability. We need consistency, care, and time. Proximity builds power. When people witness cash in action, families watch loved ones stabilize, an employer gives somebody a shot, neighbors see someone thriving instead of struggling, even skeptics become advocates. And as trust-based programs take root, they're coalescing a new narrative, which is that cash is effective, trust is transformative. When we started this work in 2021, our goal at the time was to prove that GI would help people coming home from prison and to push for the Department of Corrections to replicate and scale that. We expected to meet people's material needs, and we did that, of course, food, transportation, clothing, things like that. What we underestimated was just how deeply this was going to restore a person's sense of worth. For people who have been ground down by years in cages, probation, limited opportunities, fines and fees that must be paid under threat of reincarceration, getting unrestricted cash was not helpful. This was radical. This was healing. It didn't just change their bank account. It changed their posture, their plans, the way they saw themselves. People were no longer too poor to be free. One of our participants told us this is the first time that something was for me, not to fix me, just for me. And to be clear, the same system that tortured me on Thursday cannot be the one to support me on Friday. I cannot believe I haven't cussed yet. That's amazing. I'm doing really good. Everything the prison system touches becomes dehumanized, weaponized, distorted. That's why GI, we think, must be rooted in communities that understand survival and not in the institutions that criminalize it. With just income, our only interventions are cash and kindness. Here is money, and we will treat you with the excellence that you so very much deserve. That is it. And just through cash and kindness, we have outperformed correctional programming. Just in our pilot year alone, reincarceration rates dropped by 31%, and they continue to fall year after year. People are no longer hungry. Mental health has improved. Employment has improved. Families and communities are stabilizing. People are moving from crisis to power. Freedom does not need to be engineered. We just need to stop withholding it. Another of our participants had an amazing quote. She simply said, "Hope goes a long way for people who are accustomed to hopelessness." Hope is a currency, and it is working. And by the way, just by reducing reincarceration, we have saved the state of Florida a ton of money, and you are fucking welcome. Okay. There are hundreds of stories. I just want to, really quickly, Aaron is one of our pilot year participants. He had spent 40 years cycling through poverty and incarceration. He came from poverty every time he was met with incarceration. For going back to the early 80s, the longest he had been out during any period was 15 months. So 40 years in the revolving door. In January 2022, he was randomly selected to get a guaranteed income for a year. It is now June 2025, and he has never gone back. He is still free. So the money that he was getting, that ended years ago, but the stability, the belief, the love that he felt, that has persisted long after the GI. He did not need to be fixed, ever. He just needed to be trusted. He needed some support. He needed some fucking kindness. He needed a breath. He needed an exit ramp, and cash paved the exit ramp for him. He is thriving. He is working. He is a very loving and present father and grandfather. He is nimble. He just had knee surgery. He's doing fantastic. And so that is not just personal success. That is true community strength. And just to make it very clear, it does a lot of things, but cash keeps bodies out of cages, period. So the stories really matter, of course, but we know that systems change takes more than that. And in Gainesville, we've been able to celebrate some amazing things, helmed by formerly incarcerated people. So we passed Florida's first fair chance hiring ordinance, opening up opportunities for people with records to get jobs. Phone calls are now free from our county jail. If you know, you know. We have eliminated 15 court and jail fees, keeping millions of dollars in the community. And then we have inspired our county's first ever reentry center, and it is staffed and led by formerly incarcerated people. Many of them are alumni. So those wins came from official channels like they must, but they were driven by people with lived experience. We did not wait for permission. We know for sure no one is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. So that's what we do. And this is amazing because this is people going from being excluded to being the architects of change. When people stop being bled dry by systems that are designed to punish poverty, and when they are given resources without conditions, they rise and they bring other people with them. It's amazing. It is proof that when the ground-up work is amplified when policy actually listens. So we're working towards a world where cash is common sense, where stability is a starting point and not a prize you get later, where policy says we see you, we trust you, you belong. I think most people in this room dream of a future where everyone has dignity, choice, agency. We're with you there. From where we stand, we think transformation really needs to start at the margins, not because the people there are broken. In fact, they're wonderful people, but because they've been systematically blocked. So each program, each story, each act of proximity chips away at the old assumptions, and it starts to form something more durable, something that we can all stand on. So normalizing unrestricted cash for people who've been incarcerated, that is the North Star that we continue to follow until everyone comes home. And to be clear, this is not charity work. This is freedom work, and freedom must be funded. Thank you. I love you.
I have to bring this down because, I'm short. So following the example of Esther, I should just channel my daughter, who's a struggling artist, a struggling actor, who sometimes lands gigs that pay, but most of the time lands gigs that don't. So dreaming of a universal basic income for her also. I first learned about universal basic income, or UBI, 25 years ago, and have been wishing for it ever since. As you just heard, it's been mainly welfare rights activists and academics talking about and writing about UBI for most of the past few decades. Then, as you also heard, Yang turned UBI into a household world, and then COVID unleashed hundreds of direct cash pilots, in large part informed by the same arguments as those for UBI: unconditionality, flexibility, immediacy, human dignity, and agency. It's been exciting witnessing the proliferation of these cash pilots and hearing from so many new voices, including the participants of the pilots, and I know so many of you are here, the CBOs running them, and the researchers evaluating them, hearing firsthand about the power of cash to change lives, mitigate loss, uplift dignity, prevent disaster, spark a new career, foster courage, create beauties, shout out to the creatives in the room, and above all, engender trust in our shared collective. For me, the North Star remains universal basic income. In order to foster a sense of solidarity and to together build a solidarity economy, I need to feel like we're all in this together. I don't care whether or not 1,000 billionaires get or don't get a basic income, but I do want the reassurance that the majority of the rest of us, most of whom I don't personally know and will never meet, get one. I also believe that a universal program will reach the people I care most about better than a targeted one. In my day job, I work for an organization running early childhood educational programs in some of the poorest neighborhoods in New York City. On a day-to-day basis, we help families apply for the public benefits they're entitled to. And there are so many barriers. For those of you here who do this work too, you know what I'm talking about. The application forms are complex, there are bureaucratic errors, it's hard to get a hold of someone when we have a question, and we often can't get our hands on the documentation proving eligibility. Many of our families don't think they're eligible, or they're not sure, and they don't want to apply because they don't want to go through the process of being rejected. Other families are a hairline above the eligibility threshold, and by no means affluent. Some don't apply because they don't want to be seen applying for a benefit that's needs-based, frankly. By definition, targeted programs need a way to parse out who is and who isn't eligible. Cash programs targeting people based on financial need will inevitably require people who are applying to prove that they need it. The percentage of people who receive public benefits that they're eligible for is rarely 100%. In New York City, the percentage of eligible people who receive supplemental food assistance is 82%. Only 40% of the people who apply for disability are initially approved, and we know that many eligible people are denied because close to 60% of the people who appeal their initial denial are then subsequently approved. It just shouldn't be so hard. In contrast, 97% of eligible people receive Social Security. Lastly, I want a UBI because we built this city. We built it, this community, this nation together. Rich, poor, middle income, artists, architects, cooks, postal workers, bus drivers, farmers, scholars, parents, and other caregivers, baseball coaches, and yes, even surfers. All of us. We built this city. We sustain it. It should sustain us. One final note. I don't believe we should be pitting a UBI against other targeted cash programs. We've learned through the countless direct cash pilots underway that unfettered direct cash is better at bringing about other policy goals than existing strategies. Giving cash to youth aging out of foster care to support their transition through this critical moment in their lives, giving cash to homeless people in lieu of housing vouchers to help them find housing, giving cash rather than food to people who are hungry, giving cash to new parents because they know what their babies need need best. And giving cash for reparations to right the historical wrongs of a generation or generations, these policy goals can and should coexist with the UBI. Such is the power of unfettered direct cash. And my North Star remains a universal basic income. Thank you.
Gotta move it up because I'm tall. So they asked me to come on here and talk about my North Star. I have 3 kids under 5 at home. They're actually not at home. They're at an Airbnb in Silver Spring right now. But I know what kind of world I want them to grow up in. And I think there's something that direct cash advocates universally understand, which is that the economy can be doing a better job serving the people. And not only that, but people everywhere matter. People in our local community matter, people in the United States matter, but people globally matter, right? The economy is a global system, and we care about everyone. People are people, and they have value because they're people. And, there are plenty of problems that direct cash won't solve. There's lots of things we need to do for the people. But you can't have an economy without money, and you need a way to get people money. And the way we currently get people their money is broken. So there's kind of 2 ways to approach this. One is we can say, okay, the system leaves some people behind, some people are suffering, some people are poor. Let's help the people who are left behind by the system. Another approach is to say, let's fix the system, right? One of these approaches is far more radical than the other, right? You get to the root of the problem and change the underlying system. And I think for me, that's why universality is important. They asked me about my North Star, like big picture. So I'm really kind of thinking about kind of this ideal world. And the policy that I imagine is what I'm going to call a global calibrated UBI. So the idea is that someday we want everybody in the world to be getting free money. And we don't want it to be just an amount that's enough to sustain people's basic needs, because why stop there when you can do better, right? What's the maximum amount of money we can hand people everywhere? And what that does is it allows us to not have to try to get money to people in other, maybe less efficient ways. So, what is even the problem that we're trying to solve here that all of us are thinking about? And I think there's no one answer to that question, right? Because everybody's thinking about something different. It could be, okay, people, are in poverty. It could be there's not enough freedom, not enough dignity. It could, yes, it's all of those things. But why is it all of those things? Because there's one underlying problem. The way we get people their money is broken. We've structured our economic system essentially so that people have to get their money through jobs. That sounds reasonable, right? Why shouldn't people have to work for a living? Well, sure, if you need people to work, then yeah, you got to kind of provide an incentive there. But if what you need is people to have money, and then your system is set up so that people have to have jobs to earn money, what you end up doing is you end up creating jobs for people that you otherwise wouldn't need to create, right? So people fundamentally, they don't need jobs, they need money, right? Sometimes we need people to work, but people don't, psychologically speaking, a lot of people kind of need jobs. But if we were setting up jobs for the purpose of people's psychology, rather than for the purpose of kind of pushing money to them, we'd be doing it differently. I'll say that much. So everyone has to get their money through jobs. And what do I mean by calibrated basic income? The maximum we can sustain, but it's also the amount that allows us not to have to overemploy people, right? So what would it look like? I mean, this is kind of pie in the sky, ideal world. We would probably have, how the Federal Reserve is set up so that it's kind of politically independent and they can have their technocratic process, getting interest rates right, that kind of thing. I would imagine something similar for UBI. So we'd have like an independent UBI authority that is maybe an agency of the US government, but maybe it's a global agency. And in a sense, the Federal Reserve is a global agency too, because we live in a global dollar system, right? The United States dollar is the money of the world, and we really have a world monetary system and a world central bank. We can have, hypothetically, a global basic income. So I think, oh yeah, I wrote some things down here. I really liked sorry, I was told not to do any crosstalk, but I really like when Stacy was reading that Lee Saunders quote earlier, and it was all working people, and she took out the working. I think that's right. Because the idea that we only care about working people is kind of this, it feeds into the system of like, okay, you have to go earn money from a job, that kind of thing. So I really like that, Stacy. So I don't really have anything more to say, except that, don't be afraid to think big and don't stop. That's it.
All right, so let me just say a little bit, and then we're going to move along. So my name is Kevin Gotkin. I'm happy to be your MC, and I am also going to step into a little bit of my own work and explain some of the stuff that I've been up to. So for just under 3 years, I've been working at Creatives Rebuild New York, which is a sunset program that actually sunsets next week. And there are some incredible CRNY artists who are here. I'm like seeing some incredible folks. So I say we, it really is Mara Cuffey Peterson who's over here, my brilliant colleague. The director of the CRNY Guaranteed Income for Artists program. And something that Mara and I have been working on is something that Ari touched on. And so, she said it so beautifully, but I've been really thinking about the folks who actually can't accept a GI payment because it will throw them off of the public benefit programs that they need. So after last year's BIG, I convened a bunch of folks, some brilliant people who are in the room for a project that we called CRIP-COIN, Disability, Public Benefits, and Guaranteed Income. There's a report that we released. I didn't go super wide on the report distribution for strategic reasons and protective reasons. If you want that report, though, please let me know. In it is when I kind of make the case for focusing guaranteed income on folks who have been historically harmed by income systems. So SSI. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to just read. We'll read the report if you want. I'm going to move us along. But what I would offer to these wonderful perspectives on how do we design cash programs? What is the North Star? Is that we know who actually has been harmed by receiving income, who has been impoverished by design of social safety net programs, and we should start with those folks.